is that odd few minutes where, you got to wait for people to get to your live and everything. I've tagged some people, so hopefully they'll start showing up soon. Hopefully people remember what this was. But yeah, we're going to get started in just a minute. Tried to clock in a little bit early, a minute early, just to make sure that everything was working. Oh wait, let me get this, hold on, let me figure this out. Let me get my lighting right. Is that it? Is that it? There we go. So I look like a shadow on this thing. There we go. All right. So we are here. This is the birthday book launch. I am your favorite author, M Porterfield. I want to thank everybody who took the time or who will be taking the time to watch, to take part, participate, and all of that. It has been a very busy year for me as a writer, as an author. I've done a few different things that kind of stretched my own expectations in a few different ways. So, of course, if you know me, if you're familiar with me and how I write, I typically write more than one book at a time anyway. So putting out a bunch of books at one time is not that odd if you know me and you know how I write. Taking it back to my very first book that I ever published, The Lover's Manual. That book it probably took me about 2.5 years to finish. That was my first book. It took me 2.5 years to finish. But that was a good learning experience. I had to learn how to put my voice to paper and how to make my words be impactful so that people would resonate with it, right? Resonate Publishing is actually the name of my book company. So, it took a little time for me to learn the process, but once I got it down pat, I was like, oh, okay, now I know how to do this. And then I got in a groove where if I didn't have other things going on, I could probably put out a book a month if I wanted to. And that's kind of where I'm trying to get to, is to be able to put out a book every month. Let you be a Z-list actor. It's a good thing that you brought that up. So this book and one of the books I'll actually be doing a reading for is Candy. So it's a good thick book, 400 pages. And so on top of it being a book, it's also going to be my first screenplay that I'm going to be writing for. So I'm still debating on if I want it to be a feature film or if I want it to be a series. If you watch anything on Netflix, I would say probably about a third of the movies and TV shows that come out used to be a book at some point in time. So that I'm thinking that's going to be my goal, is to try and get one of my books there. But yeah, definitely that is in the plan, is to turn one of these books into a film. So this year, man, I was busy. I went back to school and was still writing. Of course, we got the little one running around here. The Deuce, Nigel #2, has been running around here, so he keeps us busy as well. But thankfully I was able to find time to write, to be able to get this stuff out for you guys. And then going into the future, I want to be able to bring more content to you guys. So one of the things I did, I put the link in the description of the video. It's for my Patreon. So if you support my Patreon, and there's 4 different tiers you can select. There's $1, $3, $5, $10, right? So if you support my Patreon, I want to get to a certain point where I can be able to support my passion and support my writing solely with the support of my fans and the people who believe in me and who support me. So with that, you get, of course, different perks and benefits. So if you pick the top tier for the Patreon, you get 70% off every book that I put out. And since I put out at least 2-3 books every year, if not more, it definitely ends up panning out for you. 70% off of a book that's 400 pages long is going to save you a good amount of money. So definitely, if you're someone who's a reader or you think you're going to be buying a bunch of my books, I would advise you to sign up for my Patreon. It's patreon.com/yourfavoriteauthor. My wife just posted the link in the comments. But definitely, it's been a great year. For those of you who aren't familiar with my writings, I write in a variety of different genres. So I write action thrillers. Probably one of my most popular series so far is the Thriller The Hunt series. Got rave reviews for it. A lot of people really wanted. They're actually waiting for me to put out the third book in the installment in the series, but we haven't gotten to it yet. It probably will happen in 2020. Just had a lot of other things going on, and I wanted to make sure that the ideas I had swimming around in my head, I could get them on paper. So I write action, I write sci-fi, fantasy, thrillers, I write dramas, I write basically anything you can put your mind to. I write that type of book. So this year has been mostly a sci-fi fantasy year, but I do have a crime thriller that I'm super excited about, and a political thriller that I'm super excited about as well. So I'm going to do readings from both of those tonight. I'm going to do one chapter from each of those, just to give you guys a taste of my writing, and so you can get a feel for what you will be buying into if you do choose to support me or buy a book. The first one that I'm going to read from is called The Cards Were Dealt. Boom. Like I said, big, thick book, 400 pages. If I had to describe it in a way, I would put it as kind of a Man in the High Castle type story. Basically, America is going through, in short of a word, a race war. And it chronicles the events of four different individuals as they try and find their place in America and the way it's shaping out. So without further ado, before my throat goes out from me talking too much, I'm going to get started. I'm going to read an excerpt from The Cards Were Dealt. To give you the premise of where we are in the story, one of the main characters' name is Jameson Falk. And Jameson's father was killed in a standard by a police officer during a standard traffic stop. Cops were being jerks. They were racist. They thought he was talking back. His dad tried to defend him, and his dad died in the process. So Jameson is kind of dealing with those feelings, and during this time, he ends up coming across an individual named Quincy, who opens his world to a new possibility of things. So that's where I'm going to be starting. Hope you enjoy. There was a Starbucks a few blocks from my parents' house. Not being in classes created a void that could have been felt with fun and relaxation. I could have reached out to that girl that was in my political sciences classes, or maybe reach out to one of the guys from the football team just for a hang session. But the truth was, I just wasn't in the mood. I walked in and the smell of roasted cocoa and hazelnut hit my nostrils. I wasn't much of a coffee drinker, but the smell had always been ensnaring. It was busy as always, no different than any other Starbucks during peak hours. I walked up to the line, standing behind a blonde woman and her friend. They joked carelessly. I heard one of them mention the protests that had been going on in the city, saying that she didn't understand why black people were so mad about the police shootings when black-on-black crime was such a serious problem. My teeth clenched and I prepared myself to cuss this blonde-haired idiot out when I heard my name called. Jameson? Jameson Falk? I turned around to see a light-skinned guy wearing a black hoodie with images of Malcolm X. The man was clean-cut with golden brown eyes. It was weird how piercing his eyes were. It almost made me uncomfortable. "Do I know you?" I asked him, with a little more disdain in my voice than I intended. I couldn't help it, though. Ever since my father died, I was in a perpetual state of anger. "Probably not," he said. "I'm a nobody, but I am a fan of yours. I saw a few of your games. You were great in the last game of the season, Heisman worthy." His smile was just as captivating as his eyes. I frowned and turned towards the line. "Well, I didn't win the Heisman," I said. He stepped closer to me. "Winning isn't everything, young man. I know it's a cliche saying, but it's true." He walked over to where I was standing. I wasn't trying to have a conversation with him right now, but I guess he wasn't feeling that. He stood beside me in silence and walked up to the counter. I figured he was trying to order his stuff with me. "I'll take a strawberry acai refresher," he stepped forward. "Add an iced caramel macchiato to that," he said, and hand me the tab. He was paying for it. That was nice of him. I felt worse about being mean to him now. "I hope you don't mind me buying your drink, but I was hoping I could get a game of chess in with you. My partner that usually comes in is running late, and I'd be interested in seeing how I measure up against someone with your strategic ability. Want to run a game?" Chess. I knew how to play, but it wasn't usual for people to just walk up to you and ask if you wanted to play a game of chess. I was curious as to why he would want to play a game of chess against a quarterback. Yeah, I guess I can do that. He motioned over to the table he was sitting at, which I noticed already had the chess set ready. I walked over and had a seat. It wasn't like I had anything better to do at the moment anyways. Do you play here often? I asked him. No, I'm not from here. I came into town for a meeting and I had some time to kill, so I figured I would play a game of chess. He was studying the pieces and not really looking at me as he talked. As a quarterback, I had to learn how to pay attention to the details. My dad used to always say that was one of my strongest traits, so as I analyzed the guy in front of me, I began to assess and categorize everything that I took notice of. He had a very authoritative speech pattern, like a politician or a teacher. He couldn't have been but a few more years older than me. Oh, by the way, my name is Quincy, but you can call me Q. Ain't too many brothers with the name Quincy, so I know it's kind of odd to hear. He offered to that award-winning smile. I smiled back at him because I knew he was right. I couldn't think of not one other black person that I knew in my life named Quincy. Other than Quincy Jones, I hadn't heard such a thing. He made his first move. I know you're probably questioning why I asked you to play. His voice was soft as he spoke. Calculated. Yeah, that crossed my mind, I said as I moved my pawn forward. When you said you were a fan, at first I thought you just wanted an autograph. He laughed. I'm not that kind of fan. I guess the better word would be an admirer, he said as he moved his knight, lightly placing the piece on the square. You see, chess is a game of intellect and foresight. It requires the ability to set goals and strategize, Quincy stated. He stared at the board. I could see his mind working double time. As a quarterback, you operate in much the same way. Although most of your plays are called by the coach, you have enough autonomy to be able to make some game time decisions to secure the win. I nodded my head, moving another piece forward. This time I moved my knight to mirror his own. Truth be told, I like chess because of the challenge. You hear people say all the time that the game is chess, not checkers, right? He looked up at me for confirmation this time. In truth, it doesn't matter what the game is. Chess or checkers, you must still think strategically. Life is no different. It's all a game and we are all players whether we choose to be or not. He moved another piece, this time capturing one of mine. But if I had to be honest, I think life is a little more like poker. Do you play poker? I nodded my head. My uncles have poker night every Sunday for 10 years. I didn't play, but I watched and I picked up the basic rules. He smiled at me again. Poker requires you to have an understanding of all the variables, of all the possibilities, and make an informed decision to best reach the desired goal. You know that if you have two kings, there are a finite amount of possibilities for positive outcomes. The options given to you are more random than you have to work with. That is life. I moved the piece and he quickly moved another piece, putting him in position to take one of mine. I also had an opportunity to take one of his, but as I took his pawn, it only took a second for him to take another one of mine quickly afterwards. Being black in America is like playing poker when the dealer looks at the cards and gives you the cards that he wants to give you. The lot we are given in life is an ordeal. It's not even fair. Yet we have to play them all the same. Fairness doesn't factor into black living, he said, moving another piece. So in that scenario, how does the black player win? He grew silent, and I realized he was waiting for me to answer. I processed what he was saying. It wasn't necessarily a riddle, just a problem that needed to be solved. The dealer has an advantage. The dealer is cheating. I realized then that the problem itself didn't lie with the cards you were dealt, but with the person dealing them. Ultimately, even if your cards are bad, you can get new ones. But if the dealer continues to give you similar cards, then you're putting a Band-Aid over a gunshot wound. Ultimately, if the player wants to win, he has to either get control of the deal or walk away from the table. The game is rigged, and if you can't control the deal, you won't be able to win, I said. He stopped and stared at me. Once again, he was smiling, but this time, the smile wasn't like the others. This one was more inviting. It was more triumphant, as if he had just cashed in on a winning lottery ticket. Intriguing, he said. Time passed. We continued the game until I finally got him in check. He maneuvered out of it and put his hand over the piece. "I want to make a wager with you, Jameson," he said. "If you win, I will buy you your coffee for the next week. But if I win, you have to come to my meeting tonight." I thought about his request. I didn't have any plans tonight. And I guess I didn't have to worry about spending the rest of my winter bored out of my mind. But something seemed off. "What type of meeting is it?" I asked him. I didn't want to get roped into some type of Scientology cult or something. He leaned back and pointed at his hoodie. "Our kind of meeting. A group of people who are fed up and don't want to do something about it." I realized what he was saying. It may be good for me to finally talk to some people who felt the same way I did. I was growing tired of hearing people say, "Talk to me so I can understand," and knowing that they have absolutely no clue what I was going through. It wasn't a bad arrangement. Plus, I didn't have much to lose either way. "Bet," I said to him. He smiled his Oscar-worthy smile again, and I took his hand off my piece. Game on. We sat for another half hour, and in that time, his queen and bishop quickly dispatched the remaining pieces on my board. I tried to avoid his pieces by centering my king. He moved several more moves and had me in checkmate. As soon as the game finished, he stood up. "I win. So, do you want to ride with me, or do you have your own ride?" I looked around confused. "Wait, now? I thought you were waiting on someone." He pushed his chair in and motioned for me to follow him. I found someone more interesting. I was starting to feel unsure of my decision, but I was a few inches taller than Quincy and in much better shape. If things did get weird, I felt confident I could handle myself. I followed him out of the shop to a black SUV with tinted windows. My danger meter began to go off again before he tossed me the keys and said, "You can drive. That way you know I'm not kidnapping you." I tossed the keys back to him. "It's okay. I trust you. Somewhat." I grinned at him. He nodded and made his way over to the driver's side while I hopped in the passenger seat. The seats were leather and the car was impeccably clean. No trash, no random changes of clothes. It was almost like it was a rental. We rode around for about 30 minutes until we arrived at what appeared to be a small shopping district. He put the car in park and then turned to me. "There are no expectations here. This is a meeting. However, I felt you may benefit from seeing that you are not alone." At that point, he climbed out of the car. Hopping down from the lifted SUV, "Follow me," he said, and made his way up to the building that looked a lot like an old dance studio. The lights inside were dim, but I could see a few dozen people inside. He walked around the backside and indicated I should come with him. I followed him, studying my surroundings just in case this was an attempt to kill me or kidnap me. He walked through the back door. Each step was with purpose and intent. He belonged here. That much was obvious. But beyond that, the people inside knew he was supposed to be there. He held his hand out, indicating that I should stop where I was, and I halted in my tracks. He made his way onto a stage, which lifted him slightly above most of the people in the audience. I stood behind the curtain. As he approached the microphone that was on a singular stand, I began to listen to his words. He cleared his throat and stood before the microphone with his eyes closed like he was beginning to recite spoken word. But instead, I listened as he recited the name of every person who had died this year at the hands of police or racism. John Jones, Tabron Collins, Ezekiel Feeney, Dominique Bradbury, Donovan Bradbury, Michael Johnson, Wesley Ngobo. He continued for 5 minutes listing name after heartbreaking name, not stumbling once, pronouncing each name accurately and with power before ending with my father's name, Thomas Falk, he said, turning to me. I realized now what he meant by being with people who were like me, which made his running into me seem even more odd. Did he know that I was going to be there? Either way, I was noticing he was an amazing orator. "We know who we are. They do not," he stated powerfully. "They claim we are thugs and miscreants. They treat us as less than when we are greater than the sum of their misconceptions. There are systems in place meant to keep us down, but we will not concede anymore." Applause and cheers erupted from the audience. I watched as he stirred the hope and passion in the crowd. I don't even think I've seen someone move a crowd like that ever. Even Dr. Martin Luther King probably would have been in awe from Quincy's delivery. I don't mean to take all the time because in truth, this night isn't about me. It's about you. It's about our community. It's about making sure our future is secured, and this is where it starts. He made a fist on that last statement, emphasizing it was important. Before I continue, does anyone else want to share their experience? A woman spoke out about her son. Now, while sitting on the porch of his own home, while sitting on the porch of his own home, playing with a neighbor, he was shot by a cop who got a call about two gang members fighting. Her son died almost instantly. Another man spoke about his run-in with the police and how the man followed him for miles, then pulled him out of his car, cuffed him on the street while he went through his things. His children were sitting in the car. I was shaking with rage, thinking about my father, thinking about how they always got away with it. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. I was pulled over a little whiles back, I said, making my way from behind the curtain. I felt the eyes of the crowd lock on me. Whispers began in the crowd, but I ignored them. I began to get choked up thinking about my father's death. The cop pushed me to the ground. He had his knee in my back, in my father's back. I couldn't see. My dad, the tears began to flow before I could stop them. Quincy came and put a solitary hand on my shoulder and squeezed it. None of us are immune, so it falls on us to make sure that we support one another in our grief and empower one another in our moments of weakness. He released my shoulder and then walked back to the microphone. They have no idea how powerful we will be. His tone when he made that statement was different, as if someone else had said it. It sent chills through my body. Quincy thanked everyone for coming and said that if you wish to volunteer at future events or to be notified of upcoming matters and meetings, someone with a clipboard can take down your information and they would be in touch. When the meeting was over, the volunteers began walking around with clipboards. Quincy went around shaking hands and speaking to people in the crowd, comforting those in tears. Afterwards, he walked up to me. A tall, model-esque, dark-skinned woman was with him. Her short hair reminded me of pictures I saw of my mom back in the 80s. This woman looked like an Amazon. She was beautiful, but had an intimidating vibe to her. Jameson, this is Michelle. She's my usual chess partner, but she got caught up here setting things up. I reached out and took her hand. Her grip was firmer than I expected. She didn't offer a smile in return, and I pulled my hand back. So what did you think of the meeting, Quincy asked. The thoughts flooding my mind were all being driven by this intense emotion. Maybe Quincy said something tonight to make me feel like something could be done. Maybe he tapped into the rage that I had been experiencing. Maybe he just understood that that's all I wanted. But regardless of what I was feeling, I knew I wanted to be a part of this. Whatever this was. I want to help. I mean, maybe this can be my community service project, or Quincy held his hand up. Community service is for church groups who need members. What we are doing here is more substantial. Michelle's eyes were focused on me, like she was reading me. Her glare was just as piercing as Quincy's. Jameson, I'm going to be frank with you. He touched my shoulder and walked me back behind the curtain. His pace was quick as he led me to an empty room with some boxes. Michelle followed behind him, staying slightly off to my right. What I'm asking you to do is join something monumental. What I'm asking you to do is life-changing, but in doing it, you will be a part of drastically changing the scope of history. I looked at him to see if he was joking. Let me guess. If I take the red pill, I get to stay in the Matrix, right? I smiled. Nobody smiled back. No pills, no gimmicks. Basically, what I would be asking you to be a part of is something that could save a lot of people while also causing a lot of trouble. We aren't a gang. We aren't terrorists. Our work has purpose, but that purpose will be met with a lot of resistance. You keep saying we. Who is we? The two of them looked at each other and then back at me. Michelle closed the door, indicating that whatever was about to be said was not meant for all ears. When the door was closed, Quincy turned to me and said, Jameson, we are the Underground Railroad. I laughed loudly. The absurdity of what he had just said was just too much to contain. I had not laughed this hard since my dad died, and Quincy had opened the floodgates of laughter with that one. Oh, is Harriet Tubman here too? I laughed, washing a tear from my eye. My laugh slowly died as I realized they were very serious. Quincy was deathly silent. He continued, disregarding my laughter. What is your answer, Jameson? The rest of the crowd must have filtered out, leaving only the volunteers inside. I could no longer hear the buzzing of people moving. The Underground Railroad, as in freeing slaves. Slavery isn't a thing anymore. He turned his head sideways. Tell me, Jameson, do you feel free? I didn't answer. He was right. I didn't feel free. I have felt trapped, even more so now that my hands were tied about my dad. What does the Underground Railroad do? I asked. We work for the betterment of our people. That's the short answer. The long answer requires you to say yes. Still stone-faced, Quincy and Michelle awaited my answer. What if I don't want to? I asked, now seeing that this wasn't a joke. What would happen? Would they kill me? Then you go home. You live your life. The red pill, I guess, would be the appropriate metaphor, Quincy said. And if I join, he touched my shoulder. Then upon this rock I will build my foundation. You will be a part of something great. You will save other black men and women from going through the same things that you've experienced. I considered everything that they were saying. Will this be dangerous? Very. Will I be doing bad things? If you do, it will only be for a good reason. You seem pragmatic, so I assume you can understand the need for that at times. One last question before I decide. He looked at me amused. Shoot. Why did you join? He looked shocked at my question at first, and then recomposed himself. My membership is not so much a matter of joining. I didn't choose this lifestyle. I was born into it. But if you're asking why I continue to push the work of the Underground Railroad, then that answer is more simplistic. He nodded. Because I view this as a matter of survival. And for us and people like us, there is no alternative. This is the hand that we were dealt. Leaving the table isn't feasible, so we have to control the deck. I finished. He smiled at me. Yes. I considered everything he was saying, but I just couldn't get myself to say yes. He seemed to read my discomfort and answered prior to me saying anything. Think it over. If you want to come on board, you can come to that same Starbucks. Ask for the manager and tell them that you have an interview with Quincy. Do you own that Starbucks or something? I asked. No, he smiled. But the manager has my information and he can get in touch with me. He holds his hands out. It's been a long day, Jameson. Let's get you back home. So, that is one chapter from The Cards We Are Dealt. That's a book that I feel really, really good about. I'm really excited about seeing how far that book can go because it's one of the ones that I feel like can be made into something more. I want to take a second to once again thank everybody who's watching me and listen to me talk for, I don't even know how long this live has been going. I don't know how long I've been reading, but I want to thank y'all for coming out once again. This is a part of my birthday book launch. We had 6 books that came out. It could be a movie. I 100% believe that, and we're going to speak that into existence. Yes. But this is a part of my birthday book launch. So we had several books come out at the end of this year. These are books that I've been working on throughout the entire year. We've got The Cards We Dealt. We've got Candy. We've got Baron's Wasteland, which came out earlier this year. We have Warlock, which came out in December. We have Journey the Traveler, which came out in December, and Ascension, which came out in December as well. So quite a few things for you guys to look forward to. And I definitely hope that if you haven't got a book or you haven't ordered one already, you do order one in the coming weeks or days or months or however long. Definitely a great Christmas present to get to family and friends. If you have any family members or friends who are readers, definitely let them know that my book is available. You can order it. You can DM me. Any way you want to get in touch with me, I'll get you a book. And as a matter of fact, if you order before the end of the year, I will autograph that book and everything. So I have terrible handwriting, so I have to actually practice my autograph. I've thought about cheating and getting my wife to write my autograph for me, but she won't do it. So I actually have to definitely work on my autograph, but I will autograph any book that is ordered before the end of the year. And Mother, I will be sending your invoice tonight. I've just been busy running around this weekend with the kids. Running around with the kids, and then we had Christmas party and other things to go to, so we've been very busy this weekend, but I will get that invoice to you. So also, for those of you who don't know, aside from writing books, I will definitely do that. Auntie, I will send you one as well. I just want you to be aware, my mom is ordering all the books. If you want all the books, I will inbox you the different price ranges and how you can save money. So without any discounts, just straight out, if you order all the books at once, it's $138. I'll just let everyone know. However, you can save a lot of money by saving up for my Patreon. So the top tier, if you are a top tier member of the Patreon, it ends up costing you $35. And then you also get 70% off every book that you purchase going forward. The lower tiers go down from 70% to 50%, and 50% to 25%. And then the lowest tier is $1 a month, but it doesn't get you any discounts, but you get access to some cool content. And then next year I'll be doing some merchandise giveaways. Thanks, Ma. Next year I'll be doing some merchandise giveaways as well. So, definitely it benefits you to be a part of that. Outside of the books, I write books, of course. I've written over 20 books, between 20 and 30 books. I got to actually take the time to count them. But I also have 2 comic books as well that I've written for. I do not draw them, but I do have an artist that I worked with. So the first is Ghost. I got that made in 2016. And then the second is going to be a part of a recurring series. It's Golem Gladiators. You guys probably remember the Kickstarter we did for that. That Kickstarter was successful. So if you want to order one of those, these are also available on my website. Definitely, cop those as well. So that's great for if you have kids or if you're a comic book fan. I'm a comic book fan myself. I have a whole stack of comic books back here that I'm reading all the time. So definitely contact me for anything that you want to order. So without further ado, and before my voice goes out, because I need to drink some water before my throat goes out, I'm going to read this last excerpt. It's going to be from Candy. So the comic books are different prices. One is $7.99. I think the other is $8.99. Yeah, inbox me on that information, and I'll get you more information on it. I promise you. I promise you I will. But yeah, so I'm going to read the last book. So Candy, if I had to describe Candy, if I had to describe what this book was, it's kind of a mix between Snowfall to me and Insecure. That's kind of a weird, combination, I know, but that's kind of how I looked at it. It was like is a mixture between Snowfall and Insecure. The main character, she grew up. Her parents were separated, but her father and mother were both very active in their lives. Her dad grew up in the streets. Her mother was a very church-going person. So she, after her father died, she tried to go the right path. She tried to go to college and do what she was supposed to do, but she struggled to find a job. She was dating a guy that was kind of a deadbeat. He wasn't really doing anything to help contribute to their income. And she hits a low point where she can't find work. She can't pay her bills. Like, she's struggling just to get by. And I'm sure all of us, well, I won't say all of us, I know I have at some point been like, man, what do I got to do to make this money? Let me watch Breaking Bad and figure out how he made all those millions, because that sounds like a good idea to me. So she becomes involved in the streets, and she actually figures out that she's really good at it. She's a natural at it. And she starts growing her empire into something that garners a lot of attention. So, with more power, you're going to have more enemies and stuff as well. So it navigates her growing and becoming this drug boss and taking over the streets and not kind of doing things in an unconventional way so that she can make her own way in life versus following the path that everyone tried to set for her. So I'm going to read this excerpt from Candy, and then I'll take questions, and after that, I'll be done, man. So I am going to, give me 1 second, because I'm going to read a different excerpt because of the fact that the one I originally was going to read, I realized might be a little adult for certain audiences, and because this is live and I do have younger people who follow me, I don't want to have some have some inappropriate stuff being read to them. I'm all about the family. I'm a family guy, so give me 1 second while I get to the right chapter that I'm going to read. But definitely in the meantime, if you haven't already, go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/yourfavoriteauthor, YourFavoriteAuthor, and sign up. So, 1 second here. So, to give a premise of what Candy, where we are in this part of Candy, she has just made her first batch of her product. She has tested it. She's made sure that it's good. This is a brand new drug that has not been on the streets before. And so now it's going to be her first attempt at trying to sell. I will preface this book does have some language in it. I will not be reading those parts. I will be skipping over it. But just know that this book does have some language and some content in it. This is a more mature themed book. All right. So here we go. This is from Candy. There were several VIP booths in this club. It was the same one that Nico had been a DJ in before, so I was pretty familiar with the layout. I sat in Nico's booth and waited for the club to fill. It was going to be a few hours before they hit capacity, but I had made it this far, I could wait a little bit longer. I could say one thing. Nico could get a party jumping. It took no time at all for the club to pack out. The dance floor was filled and the VIP sections were starting to be bought out. I looked over in the booth beside me and saw that there were 5 women dancing in the section beside me. It was time for me to put my plan into action. I had already decided on my sales pitch. It was simple, but it was repeatable, and I knew that those who were interested would understand the underlying message. I walked over to them and stopped short of their booth. All of their eyes turned towards me, and before they had a chance to ask me why I was there, I started. "Y'all ladies want some candy?" I said. They all turned my way as I came over and just sat down. "I'm good," the one girl said, but another one seemed to understand that I was asking something deeper. "What we talking, Molly?" the dark-skinned girl said. From her response, I could tell that she would be my end. "Nah, beautiful, something better." I pulled out 5 of the pieces that I had stuffed in the front of my purse. "This is the Willy Wonka of party favors." I knew if I called it a party favor, it wouldn't come off as something illegal. The girl looked at the candy intrigued. Choosing the color red was purposeful. Red enticed people. It drew them to action. It stirs the blood and it creates desire. They looked at the candy with wonder, and I knew that I had won. The candy coating is saturated with a chemical that makes you feel good. I rubbed my own body as I said it. The great thing about it is the high lasts as long as the candy does, and you sober up almost immediately afterward. It hits quick and fades when you want it. Plus, it doesn't have any lasting effects. Have a sample on me. If you like it, come back for more and tell your friends too. They all stared at my open hand, unsure of whether they wanted to try it or not. Is it safe? A brown-skinned beauty on the edge of the couch asked. I thought about the testing that Nico did on himself and the two girls. 100% safe. They each grabbed a piece of candy, unwrapped it, and put it in their mouths. I stood up and took a step back to watch them. Remember, if you tell other people to come find me, there's more in it for you. I pointed over to the DJ booth. I'll be over there. I began to walk off, but before I got too far, the dark-skinned girl grabbed my hand. What's your name? She asked me. Candy Girl, I replied before turning away and walking off. I couldn't believe I was nearly reckless enough to give my real name. You could call me Candy Girl, I shouted back. The girl smiled at me flirtatiously. Okay, Candy Girl, she waved at me and went to go sit with her friends in VIP. I walked over to the DJ booth and stood beside Nico. I tugged on his sleeve and pointed in the direction of the VIP section. He nodded. The two of us watched as the girls in VIP began to dance more loosely, obviously having a much better time than they were before. So far, so good, Nico shouted to me over the sound of the music. I watched as the girls danced provocatively with each other. As they did, the men who were walking by became hypnotized by their movements. Nearly every man in the club was now staring in their direction. Who could blame them, though? They were putting on quite the show. I watched as two men walked over. They looked to be college age. They approached the girls with a confident swagger that let me know they either had a lot of money or they had a lot of power. Possibly both were true. They leaned over and whispered in the ears of the girls, and everyone laughed. I needed them to refer people to me. Come on, I said to myself as I swayed to the music playing. I was getting impatient. Word of mouth was one of the best sales methods around. That was proven. So I needed these girls to use their mouths to spread the word. I waited, dancing with Nico lightly as the girls continued to flirt with the two men who had now made themselves feel much more comfortable in VIP. That's when one of the girls pointed up towards me. I watched as the guy nodded and began to jog over to the DJ booth quickly. I tried not to stare at him as he made his way across the dance floor over to me. Hey, what's good, Candy Girl? He asked. I nodded. Them chicks over there said that we could get some of that candy from you. How much? He pulled a wad of cash from his back pocket. He was carrying at least $1,000 in that knot. How many you want? I asked him. How many can I get? He said. He was drawing this thing out. I'll give you 20 pieces for $400. That should give you all y'all need for a good night, I said in a seductive tone. I knew what was on his mind. The same thing that was on most men's minds. So if this could help me guarantee that he ends the night between a set of brown thighs before the night was over, I knew he would. He quickly unfolded 4 $100 bills and passed them to me. I tucked the money into my dress and then handed him 20 pieces in a Ziploc bag. He looked at the bag and laughed, and then nodded his head my way before walking off. The VIP area cheered when they saw him return with a bounty of red balls in tow. We were doing it. It went on like that for the rest of the night. I made my way around the club, and people would stop me and ask me for some candy. Before I knew it, I had completely emptied Nico's stash and was only down to the few pieces I had left in my purse. I made my way back to Nico to tell him the good news. We had done it. We were killing it. We were making money. As I climbed into the DJ booth to spread the word to Nico, he reached over and grabbed my arm tightly. Nico, what the world? I said, snatching my arm away from him. His eyes were staring out into the crowd. It was as if he didn't even hear me. I tried to see what he was staring at, but before I could ask, he filled in the blanks. Crap, Candy, we got a problem, Nico said. His eyes were wide as he turned to me. Dolo is here. And that is it. So, I thank y'all for hanging out with me. I thank those of you who listened to me read, listened to everything I had to say. I appreciate each and every person who continues to support me. With that being said, I got this 8:43 right now. I'm going to give 7 minutes. No, I'll give 10 minutes. 10 minutes for questions if anybody has any. If you don't have any, that's cool. But if you have questions for the next 10 minutes, I am here to answer those questions. And the books that I read from, and the cards that we are dealt, Candy. Candy is the one that I'm hoping turns into a Netflix series. That is the goal. See me on Netflix. Boom. Let's go. We're going to speak that into existence. But yes, for those of you who do not know my story, I started writing back in 2015. Well, no, I started writing long before that. But I finished my first book in 2015. When I started writing that book, I was still sleeping in my car every once in a while. Cars broke down all the time. It's a rough point in my life, but I started it and I finished it in 2015. And then I've been going full steam ever since. So, this is what I do. This is what I love. I want to do this full time, support me and my family. That's all I care about is writing books and writing stories and telling stories. That's what life is about. Whether it's music, whether it's plays, storytelling is what makes the world go around, and that's what I enjoy doing. Hey, Tierica. What's going on, Christian? Jerron, thanks for dropping through. I will definitely inbox you once this video is done. Hey, Auntie, how's it going? So once again, if you have any questions about anything, definitely reach out to me. It was actually before high school. I mean, if you include poetry, it's before high school. I do poetry as well. I have 2 books of poetry that are available for sale. If you are a fan of poetry, you can purchase those as well. But yeah, I definitely, I've been writing almost my whole life. Started with poetry, and then after poetry, I did music for about 5 years. I was a hip hop artist, and then I managed several other artists. Those people were the collective known as Black Titan Entertainment. Great people. They are essentially family to me and are an essential part of my story as well. So I'm forever grateful to all of those members. Darlene, how you doing? Dr. West. But yeah, I started with poetry, then I went from poetry to music. I did music for hip hop for about 5 years. I traveled, performed in different places, performed in front of labels. That's an interesting story for another day. I might share that on my Patreon one day. But yeah, I did a lot with music. Still have a passion for music as a form of storytelling, and I have an idea in the near future. Well, I won't say near future. In the future, at some point in time, where I will be doing music again, but it's going to be in the form of a musical. So I want to do a hip hop musical. So all of the rappers and singers that I know, you will be getting a call or a message or a DM from me at some point in time. A biography? Yes. I don't know who's going to write it, though. Or unless you're saying I should write it. Yeah, I could write it. I don't like talking about myself. I don't even like talk. It's like I like talking about other things, but I don't like talking about myself. There are people who probably are like, oh, he lying, like he talk about himself all the time. But I be fronting. I ain't real. I don't really like talking about myself. I was actually nervous when I was doing, before this all started, I was like sitting in this chair, like contemplating like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about? But the reading is done with. Obviously, I read over a 4th grade level. I did stumble a couple times, but this was my first reading ever. This is my first live reading ever. So I definitely appreciate everyone who stopped through and everyone who watched. Like I said, if you have not subscribed to my Patreon, you can definitely do that and receive discounts, receive free merchandise. If you sign up for the top tier, you get a free book. So there's plenty of benefits to signing up for it. On top of the fact that there's going to be certain books and certain pieces of writing. I do like talking. So I should have been a lawyer because I like running my mouth. But I don't really like talking about myself. I'm one of those people that knows a lot about nothing, and so I know like a little bit about everything, and I just like to talk about things like politics, religion, all of it. So comic books, movies, doesn't matter. Music, I can talk about it all. Science, I just love to talk. I like relationships. I like connecting with people. But that's kind of what me being an author is about is storytelling. Like I said, I love storytelling, and in everything we do, there's a story behind it. Like in politics, there's a story. In music and movies, there's a story. In relationships, there's always a story. Sometimes those stories may be perceived different ways by different parties, but there's a story in everything that we do. And so, as an author and as a storyteller myself, I take pride and I enjoy that aspect of life. I love connecting with people. I love telling stories. I love talking to people. So, that's what I do. 2 more minutes, and then I'm shutting this thing down. Once again, and I'm going to put the link back in. Let me see if I can. I don't think 2020 will be the start of the movie. It probably, so for Candy, I've spoken to a lot of people who are in the film industry. I have a sister who does a lot of acting, and then an old friend who is in movies, and then some Facebook friends as well who have either been in movies, directed, and things like that. And I talked to a lot of people, and so I've figured out that shorts are kind of the way to go right now. You don't want to go and film a whole movie, especially if you don't have the backing that you need. So what I'm going to do is try and film like a 20-minute short, 15 to 20-minute short film. Not even really a short film, just kind of a little clip to get people interested in it and get get a following behind it. And we may film that in 2020, but with what I have going on next year, I want to be more realistic about my goal setting. So I don't want to set goals for myself that are going to be too hard for me to reach or unrealistic. So I definitely want to set a goal for it in the future. 2020 is like, if something happens where all these other things fall into place, then yes, 2020 would be a goal. But I'm looking more realistically at 2021, late 2021, or maybe 2022 for filming. Which video? You gotta give details with that, Auntie, because when you say that video y'all did, there's a lot of videos circulating on the internet. I don't want people thinking I got some weird stuff out there. Which video are you talking about? I think that's supposed to be stars. Yes, I do remember that video. I don't even know if Stars is still watching this or not. If you're talking about the one I think you're talking about, are you talking about the one we did for that contest where we had the song and everything with it? If you're talking about that one, that was a fun project, but that was a terrible video. No. we had my homeboy Chad. I don't know if he's watching either. Yeah, my homeboy Chad came, and we had him be like this like boss enforcer guy. He kicked in my apartment door, and we had him like throwing us. We was doing our own stunts, and we had him throwing us on the ground, like he was throwing me on the ground, like it was like a fight scene and everything in it. Poorly choreographed, poorly filmed. Stars was like a ninja. He dropped down from the trees, and it was fun. Like I said, I had great moments with the Black Titan crew and their forever family, but I would not shoot another film of that caliber. If I did, I would need so when we filmed for Candy, I'm getting a film crew. I'm getting an actual like director and people who have film experience. One of the things I've learned in life is that you can't do it all as much as I would love to. And that is me. Like, I've always been somebody who loves to do things on their own. I'm very independent. I'm very self-motivated and internally motivated. I'm the type of person that I'd rather teach myself how to do something than depend on someone else. But you can't do that with everything. I've tried that with a lot of things. Like, now, would I do? I'll do videography and photography for like other things, but shooting a film is a completely different animal. I mean, I just this past year, like learned how to read a treatment for a script and how that is supposed to pan out and things like that. And I still wouldn't say I'm the most experienced person with that, but that's why I'm going to use my resources and the people around me who are familiar with the industry to help me with that. But no, I will not be filming it myself. However, the people the people that were involved, so like Stars does acting, and he was interested in acting. So I don't know if you guys saw the main character, Jameson, brother with dreads. So if Stars wanted to audition for that role, he would definitely be welcome to it. But no, I will not be filming it. I will get someone who makes a living filming things and specifically filming movies to help me with that. I'm not going to do it myself. Any other questions? And yes, as much as possible, I'm going to try and maintain myself as an independent author. So one thing about me as an author, so my very first book was done through Amazon. I did, Create Space and independent publishing. And so that platform is good for people who want a way to get their books to people that's relatively easy and cost efficient. I'm going to talk about it in a way where I don't want you to feel like I'm knocking the process. If that process works for you, that's great. My very first book, The Lover's Manual, which I think I have around here somewhere, is somewhere around here. My very first book, The Lover's Manual, published through Amazon. And you already know Amazon's going to get a percentage of your books, which is, fine because they're giving you global brand and global outreach. I mean, I had somebody buy my book in Japan when I sold The Lover's Manual. So that's cool, and that's awesome. My issue with Amazon, and this could have been just a one-time thing. Maybe it's not something that happens for everybody, but I was selling my book, and to promote your book, what they do is they'll give it away for free for like 2 days. And I found issue with, after that period went by, I went online to kind of check the status and see how my book was doing, and I saw other people selling my book, people that weren't like authorized retailers or anything. Like, it was like Jim Bob 23 was selling my book and selling it for more money than I was selling it for. And so because I didn't have the protection that I needed, and I wasn't as experienced and well versed in the book realm as I would have liked to be, I decided going forward, I'm not going to sell my books through Amazon. I'm going to sell them through my own website, and I end up making more money that way anyways, because selling your book on Amazon, you have to sell it for a certain price range, and then they're going to take 60%. When I sell my own books, I sell them for a little bit more than I was selling it on Amazon. So on Amazon, I sold it for $10. I was getting about $4 or $5 back. I have to do a little more work on my own when I buy directly from the printer. So when I buy, of course, I have to pay for the cost of the books, and that can go anywhere from, $5 and $10 to $15. Then I also have to pay for shipping, which, depending on where you stay, I've had to pay as much as $12 for shipping before. I try and charge a flat rate for shipping, but overall, I'm in a better place selling my own books myself financially, and then I have a little more control over who has access to my books than selling it through Amazon. But I'm not saying that, if you're an independent author, you shouldn't go through Amazon. If that works for you, definitely, have at it. But I'm a big advocate for building your own brand, selling yourself, and people believing in you. So that is my goal, and that's what I'm doing with my book. So once again, I want to thank everyone who checked out my video. I read for a long time. I talked for a long time. If there are no further questions, once again, these books are available on my website. Like I said, it's a good thick book, 400 pages. The Cards We Are Dealt by M Porterfield. Candy by M Porterfield. You also see the big candy poster in the background. Can y'all see that? I think y'all can. Wait, let me move. Boom. The big candy poster behind me. We also have Warlock, Ascension, Journey the Traveler, and Baron's Wasteland are also available. I love you too. I love all of you. Thank you for supporting me. And it is your favorite author. I write books. Y'all have a good night.